Here we go on to the next chapter of Lois Lowry's Willoughbys. This is chapter 15, A Regrettable Transaction. Uh-oh, Barnaby A. said as they approached their own house at the end of their outing. What's that sign on that sign? They had all become very accustomed to the for sale cheap sign that was still tacked to their window box, and to the tacked on addition that announced the reduction of price, and they were so accustomed to scurrying into their disguises and poses at the approach of prospective buyers that Jane could become a lamp in a very few seconds. Tim could burrow under or into his fur rug in no time at all. Nanny took a little longer to transform herself into a statue of Aphrodite because, of course, she had to shed her clothes and powder herself and wrap herself in a sheet. All this was time-consuming, but it was a routine by now. The real estate agent would call to announce the showing of the house, and all of them would automatically move to their places, waiting for the sound of her key in the front door lock. Usually, the showings were very short. Sometimes the prospective buyers never even reached the upstairs. That was always a bit of a disappointment to Nanny, and she was thinking of moving her statue's position, perhaps to the parlor, where people would have a better view of Aphrodite. Curses! Tim said in horror as he ran forward to read aloud the further addition to the sign. Look at this! How could this have happened? We have been sold! Oh no! Barnaby B. groaned. We should have never gone for a walk. Terrible things always happen when one is out for a walk, Jane pointed out sadly. Remember Little Red Riding Hood? And, oh dear, Hansel and Gretel? Nanny opened the door, hurried inside. On the hall table, she found a hastily written note. It's from the real estate agent, she explained with a worried look, read it out loud to the children who had gathered around her. Congratulations! I'm sorry you weren't home when I called to announce our visit, but the house looked lovely, smelled so appealing. Raisin cookies, I think, and the prospective buyer fell in love with it and has given me a ton of money. You have 2 weeks to leave. Please feel free to take your undies. Good luck. Oh, no, the twins wailed. Drat, said Tim with a scowl. Jane stamped her foot and began to cry. Let us not waste time with tears and useless expositions, Nanny told them. What if this were a story in a book, with a well-worn maroon leather binding? What would a good old-fashioned people do in this situation? They would call the sheriff, Tim said. Murdered the villain, the twins suggested. Jane simply continued to sob. Nanny handed her lace-trimmed hanky. They would make a plan, Nanny announced. But first, she added, heading toward the kitchen and reaching for her apron where it hung on the wall. They would bake a lemon souffle. She opened the refrigerator, took out some eggs. While the souffle was in the oven, and during that time they were all required to tiptoe because heavy footsteps can ruin baking a souffle. Not many people know this, Nanny pointed out, but this is why there are so many ruined souffles in the world. The mail was delivered in a whoosh through the mail slot in the front door. No! Wailed Tim, holding up a postcard. They've again survived! Everyone tiptoed to his side, even Nanny, though she checked the oven time first because the souffle must be very carefully timed. She had told them, and not many people were very careful enough with this aspect of souffle baking. Tim read the card aloud. Dear ones. Ha! They all said out loud, but quietly because of the souffle. Excessive noise can be the death of a souffle, Nanny had explained. Such an adventure! The helicopter crashed and the pilot plummeted into a raging volcano. Cleverly, we hung on to a rotor and were spun to the safe ground. Only the pilot was lost, and it didn't matter because he was a Presbyterian. We wonder why the house still is unsold. Perhaps it is because of the cat. Please have her put to sleep. Jane looked down at the cat, who had just rubbed against her leg with a loud purr. She She sleeps every night and a lot during the day as well. Why would we put her to sleep more often when she would just pounce about the chasing bits of fluff? Her brothers looked meaningfully at each other, wondering whether or not to explain to Jane what their parents had meant. Nanny shook her head at them, and so they remained silent. Does it say anything else, or just end with a cruel sentence about the cat? Barnaby A. asked. A bit more. Tim continued reading. Now, off to our excursion. And this one is on our own. No guides for us. We are to climb an Alp, one that has never been successfully climbed. It is cluttered with frozen bodies, but we prepared. We have brought pythons for our feet and crampons to attach to our heads. Crampons to attach to our heads. I don't think pythons are for your feet, Barnaby B. said. I read a book about mountain climbing. Pythons are the spikes you use to hammer into the ice. I read the same book as B, said his twin. Crampons are for your feet, for your boots, actually. Why would they put them on their heads? Because they are adults, Tim said, remembering again that Nanny had outlawed this word and looking at her defiantly. They are adults, indeed, Nanny said. She stared at the postcard and murmured, I myself am a Presbyterian. Jane was on her knees playing with the cat. Where are we going to live? She asked piteously. And can the cat come? The kitchen timer buzzed. They tiptoed to the kitchen to eat souffle and make a plan.